Hello, everyone. Greetings. This is Volts for May 6, 2026. Streamlining the difficult work of whole home retrofits. I'm your host, David Roberts. If you listen to Volts, own a home, and like nearly 60% of Americans, heat your home with fossil fuels, you're probably thinking that you should do something about that. And you're probably dreading the gauntlet you keep hearing about. Dozens of hours of research, a parade of contractors, quotes that vary wildly and that you have no way to evaluate or compare, weeks of scheduling, and an eye-popping bill at the end of it. Lots of people, especially the kind of unlucky saps who don't listen to Volts, just give up and replace their gas furnace with another gas furnace. It is the path of least resistance. We have something like 80 million single-family homes in this country, most of them running on fossil fuels, and we need to transition basically all of them to clean electricity, or thermal energy networks, and it's not going very well. The pace is glacial. Grant Gunnison is the founder and CEO of Zero Homes, a Denver-based company that is trying to fix this, not just for homeowners, but for the contractors who do this work and are dealing with their own version of the same broken process. His bet is that smartphones and software can take most of the friction out. We are going to talk all about that. Grant Gunnison, welcome to Volts. Thank you so much for coming.
David, great to see you.
So you come from a family of contractors, so you've seen this from that side of things. I feel like most of the people I talk to are coming into this from the homeowner perspective. So this is good. So what I want to do is walk through the process as it exists now with all its difficulties, and then we'll pivot to what you're bringing to your solution. I know you, like I said, are coming at this from the contractor angle, but let's start with the homeowners, and then we'll talk about it from the contractor's perspective. We'll talk about the dismal results of the current process, and then we'll talk about what you're doing. So walk us through the typical homeowner experience when they're trying to do something like this. I think you actually did some research, did you not, at DOE about the customer experience in this, or am I...
That's right. I've been very fortunate to both work on this problem academically as well as be in the middle of it myself.
Which is to say, your knowledge of the customer experience is not merely through working in the industry. There's been more formal kind of looking at it.
That's right, for sure. Both through the industry group lens, through work with the DOE and some implementers, well before I actually jumped into building the business I'm working on today. So, and I think that perspective is helpful and in fact, maybe required in order to solve a number of problems to really raise the customer experience bar. And we'll talk about this later, but the contractor experience and many of the other stakeholders involved in delivering these projects.
Starting from the homeowner then, so what is the typical homeowner experience?
The most common circumstance is one of their pieces of equipment breaks. For sake of argument, let's call it, their air conditioning system. And they're going to go, oh no, it's hot outside. I want this fixed. I'm going to be uncomfortable quickly. I need to get a human to my house to look at this as fast as possible. If they have owned their home for a while and had to do a few projects, they probably have some friends that might be able to refer someone, or they're going to go to, one of the search engines, Google, Yelp, Angie's, so on and so forth, trying to find someone that can get to their house. And often they're going to have one person come by. That person's going to quickly tell them one of two things. Hey, great, I can fix it and it costs X amount of money, or this needs to be replaced. And it's going to cost probably 10 to 20 times what it would cost to just fix it. And if a homeowner's in the latter category, they're going to go, ooh, okay, actually I need to hit the brakes here because now we're talking about a $10,000 or $20,000 expense. And I need to feel confident that that's the right path to take. So that generally starts with, let me have 2 or 3 more folks come by to give me a second or third opinion, much like you would if you're, meeting a doctor and, have to make a really consequential decision. You want to get a few opinions. And that's where we start. That's the high urgency and high complexity situation they find themselves
Yeah,
in.
it's sort of funny. Like almost every contractor who's dealing with a homeowner is dealing with a homeowner who is facing a huge project and uncomfortable at the lack of their appliance. So universally irritated customers. But one of the things you found was that quotes, even on the same job in the same area from local contractors, can vary like 30% quote to quote.
That's right.
I'm a homeowner. Like, what do I know about about a contractor who says 20% more than another one? Do I just go with the cheap one? Do I have any way of comparison? I don't. Just as a homeowner, you feel so helpless. And then if you pick one, it can take a while to make it all happen.
Part of the challenge, of course, is homeowners are choosing between three things. So we often call this the sort of iron triangle of decision making, which is speed, quality, and cost. If you want the fastest solution, okay, great. You're going to give up on quality and you're probably going to give up on price a lot. Often people care about quality. They want to really feel like they're making a high value decision. And so they're probably most willing to give up on speed and cost because you're making a decision that's going to impact, the comfort and cost of your home for a decade or maybe 2 decades. But that's not everybody. And so, it really depends on what the homeowner's appetite across those three dimensions are, in addition to what their home needs.
Or even if you want quality, like as a homeowner, I can't directly assess the quality of different heat pumps or whatever. So I'm using these proxies. I'm using these terrible heuristics. Like, do I like the contractor's vibe? You know what I mean? Or like, how close is this price to another price? Just these terrible heuristics. They feel like I'm wallowing around in just, in a mire of uncertainty.
Totally. I mean, the quality advice around which products and how to solve the problem that a homeowner is articulating, which can be one of many things, right? I mean, it can be my home's uncomfortable, my utility bills are high, I have a broken piece of equipment, on and on and on. And depending on who comes to your house is kind of the opinion of solution that you're going to get. And that becomes very challenging for a homeowner if they don't have any experience. They're trying to come up an experience curve, and it's very challenging to get good information. You have to have multiple experts come by. That costs a lot of money and a lot of time. And so that's what makes, I think, a lot of folks feel very uncomfortable about going through one of these processes.
It really strikes me as like weirdly parallel to trying to access healthcare in the United States. Like very similarly, you're going to experts, you have no knowledge of your own, no basis to decide between them. You're just like struggling to work with vibes.
I know.
They have perverse incentives. It's very similar.
Healthcare is even worse for sure, because you also are gated by your insurer to who you can see. And anyway, so we don't need to run down that rabbit hole, but it's challenging for sure being a customer in this space.
So it sounds like it's not that fun for contractors either, the current process. So maybe talk us through it from that angle, because that is something, of course, most of us are less familiar with. But like, what are the frictions from a contractor's point of view?
Yeah, so maybe just looking into what are all the functions inside of a contractor, only one of them actually generates revenue for them, which is getting the work done on someone's home. But in order to get there, they have to do sales and marketing. They got to have staff that are going out to meet with homeowners. They have to spec, design, purchase equipment. They got to deal with cash flow. They have warehouses. They hold equipment. They got to package all that stuff and get it out into the field.
And usually a couple of visits before the actual work visit too, right?
That's right. And depending on how complex the project is, that's right. You might have, one sales visit and then maybe a couple, what we might call pre-construction visits. And so you're spending a ton of time on site just to make sure that when you're ready to get the project done, you can do it effectively in the field. And all of that costs a lot of money. And so the challenge, of course, is I want to deliver a good customer experience. Raising the customer experience bar is expensive. And I'm trying to make money as a business owner. And so what's the right trade-off there? And I think you sort of highlighted earlier, most customers' proxies for quality is the customer experience. So how responsive are they? Do they show up in a nice, clean, white collared shirt?
Yeah.
Are they on time?
Are they saying sir
These
and
types
ma'am?
of things, right? Exactly. And so you see this really interesting dynamic in the industry where the folks that can afford an excellent customer experience are also the most expensive. And those typically end up being PE-backed large contractors, or you have these small guys, might be a team of 1 to 5 people running a contracting business. The customer experience is going to suffer and the price is going to come down a lot, but there are clear trade-offs in that. And so, when I was doing this work, when I was in the field running a small business, often I was the person in the truck driving to someone's home, meeting with them, all the while trying to, be on the phone and run the business as I'm going between appointments. And I think you quickly find that the economics of these businesses are mostly fixed. If you want to have a larger year end, you have to raise your price. The overhead in the middle between your gross profit number and your year end number actually grows over time. So you'd call that negative operating leverage, as opposed to what almost every other industry sees, is that as you get bigger, your cost to deliver lowers.
Right.
And that is actually like one of the fundamental problems in this space, is that we haven't been able to innovate away any of the overhead because all the work is done like in the physical world. And we're all just muscling through it, And so it's hard for everybody.
One question related to this is, how many of those sort of sales visits or assessment visits end up translating into jobs and work? Like, I would imagine there's also a lot of just driving around and visiting where you're blowing, I guess, hundreds of dollars per and not getting jobs. I mean,
totally. Well, it depends on what that appointment is for and who's running it. But I'll give you a couple of examples. So in the largest HVAC businesses, they want sales folks that can close 50% of their leads. That's an exceptional salesperson. Generally, the floor of what's acceptable is probably in the 20s, low 20s would be acceptable, but they're typically fully commission-based roles. And so obviously the most conversion you can get lowers the driving around for folks, but it actually doesn't limit the cost of that salesperson to an individual project. And that kind of keeps the project economics fixed, which is helpful for planning, but it actually doesn't help you lower the cost to deliver as you grow revenues, right? And this is part of the challenging dynamic. And, for what it's worth, some of these sales folks, they're getting paid 8 to 12% of the project cost to get that sale closed. And so some of these folks are making $300,000 to $500,000 a year selling HVAC projects to homeowners. Or it doesn't have to just be HVAC, but some of these folks are very, very well compensated for generating revenue or bookings.
One other question about contractors is, you have all these, I guess, what you call soft costs, the talking and the driving around and the visiting and the form filling and et cetera, et cetera. What I've heard is that trying to sell a heat pump in the middle of all that, rather than just, hey, look, I've got a furnace just like the one you just lost, in my garage and I can have it installed in, 24 hours. It seems like trying to sell a heat pump just adds to the complexity, adds to the difficulty, adds to the general stress involved in all this. Is that accurate?
And the outcome of that typically is that the conversion rates for these businesses are lower.
Conversion rates meaning what?
For the number of homeowners that actually opt in versus an alternate solution.
For heat pump businesses specifically.
That's right. And this is kind of one of the cruxes of the overall problem, which is that it takes more time to properly design a heat pump system for home.
Yes.
By default, they're just more complex than looking at a 60,000 BTU furnace and going, great, I can give you another 60,000 BTU furnace, and that's going to cost you $8,000. You got to spend some more time sharpening your pencil and making sure that what you design is going to deliver the outcomes that homeowners want. And that cost has to be put at the worst part of a contractor's business. And so they're shoveling a lot of dollars out the door to quote heat pumps versus an alternative solution, which is not good for business. And so there's a lot of disincentive, frankly, for contractors to adopt this technology, even though the technology by default is much better. It's just harder to run a business doing this work than the alternative.
It's more soft cost, more talking, more persuasion, more explanation. And then if you persuade them, it's more measuring and fitting and, sizing, and it's just more, the outcome is better, but there's more going into the front end.
It can be. Part of the challenge is because there's a lot of complexity there, a lot of folks don't sharpen their pencils and really make sure they've dialed in everything, which is largely why there's kind of this undertone for heat pumps that, well, they don't really keep my house warm, or I had a bad outcome, right?
This is my segue into my next question, which is that 70 to 90% of existing U.S. residential heat pump and central air systems have efficiency losses of 20% plus due to improper installation. So it sounds like not being quite dialed in right is more common than not, basically, in the heat pump market, which is not great when you're trying to boost uptake of heat pumps.
Yeah, and here's the practical reason why that has happened. Maybe very simply, sizing a furnace can be done very quickly. You can look at the existing system, ask the homeowner if they're comfortable, and go, great, I'll give you the same system.
Are most furnaces kind of overblasting for the space they're in? Is that sort of like pretty normal?
By a very large margin, but it glosses over a lot of the challenges that have to be overcome when you're designing a heat pump properly. And the reason simply is that, if a homeowner says, it's cold time to time, okay, great, I'm going to upsize you to 80,000 BTU furnace. Okay, well, that might have a cost impact on the quote of $500. Okay, so that's fine. A homeowner's probably willing to spend an extra $500. But in heat pump world, going from a 15,000 BTU system to a 30,000 BTU system might be measured in $10,000 or $20,000.
Yikes.
And the point there is simply to say the design, and there's many points in the process that are really critical to get dialed in, but the design really impacts whether or not a homeowner is going to opt into a heat pump. And it takes a lot of time today. The design tools and whatnot to support that work are not ubiquitous and they're not easy to use. And so people often go, well, this is probably close enough. And that dynamic there, it's human nature. You don't want to spend a lot of time. If you can spend less time on something and get get a contract signed with a homeowner, great. That salesperson's done their job and they can move on to the next thing. And so this dynamic is quite challenging. And so that's one of the key problems to solve ultimately.
Is this problem of sort of poorly sized and installed heat pumps that then yield unsatisfying results? Either it's cold or the bills are higher than people expect. Is this common enough that you're starting to really see anti-heat pump sentiment floating around? Have we screwed up the installation part of this process badly enough to date that we've generated real public resistance or not?
I don't think it's so in front of everybody's face that the sentiment is, ooh, definitely don't get a heat pump. If you go on the internet, you'll see plenty of material. Homeowners are going, well, I had a really bad outcome with this, or man, this thing is a pain in the butt, or I had to have someone come redo the work. These are definitely outcomes that people have had. And it's the result of many failures throughout the process. It's not just in design. You've mentioned install as well, and there are others involved in that. And so this is sort of the symptom of process and design failure, throughout the life cycle.
Yeah, which brings us back to the homeowner's perspective, which is if you're unsatisfied with the result, who of all the people you talk to is accountable? Who do you talk to? Who pays up if it's not working? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Generally the contractor, right, should be standing behind their work to deliver, a better outcome. It doesn't mean that they necessarily will.
Yeah, I hear a lot of horror stories about that.
And to be clear, I don't want to vilify contractors by any means. Most are great actors. I would simply point at the fact that this is a hard problem to solve and it's not business as usual for them.
Well, can I press on that? Because this is what I've heard over and over again, just that they're very used to one thing and now they're being asked to shift to another thing. And of course, there's some frictions. But heat pumps have been around for a long time and they've been quite common in Europe for a long time. So is it really the case that the U.S. contractor community is still just kind of getting to know you on heat pumps?
Getting to know the technology set specifically?
Yeah, the technology and the practices and how to get the size right, all this stuff. It's crazy to me that it's still new to them.
Well, the technology is evolving a lot, I think, is part of the challenge. And also, unlike in the furnace world, every 60,000 BTU furnace pretty much operates the same. If I pulled out 5 different brands of 3-ton heat pumps, the reality is they actually perform 5 different ways. And so that creates a lot of challenges where you actually have to really spend some time making sure that you've sized things correctly. Maybe you've had to add backup heat or, done the other things that are not just heating and cooling related in the design to make sure that folks have comfortable outcomes. Add that complexity on top of the fact that in the US, we have so many different climate zones and completely different utility dynamics, maybe by the mile almost. There's just a lot to handle there.
Building codes varying from place to place, is that a factor too, a big factor?
And HOAs and. There are a lot of challenges. Maybe the most practical point is that we haven't been able to make this work easy and foolproof, and therefore we've had some challenging outcomes. And I think in a lot of ways, folks then point to the practitioners, the folks in the field saying, hey, it's your fault. I just don't take that perspective. I think this is a hard problem, and that in order for us to solve the symptoms, we actually have to just make the problem easier.
I feel like people who've listened to this pod for a long time now will have noticed a theme, which is like almost everybody I talk to, they're trying to make their product or process cheaper. And it's almost always by modularizing or standardizing steps, right? Making sort of off the shelf steps. And you're just like describing a business that is very, very difficult on its face to standardize and modularize. And, it's got bespoke at every step. So we're about to pivot now to what you're trying to do to standardize and modularize. But I wanted to put all this up front just to sort of make it clear that like, this is so hands-on and so bespoke.
You got to be in the trenches to solve this problem, I think, is both our perspective and what we've seen in the market.
So maybe this is the time to introduce Manual J, just as a concept, just to tell us what it is, because it's going to come up later. And
yeah, we can talk about
what is Manual J?
The sort of recipe to success. But maybe one point just quickly on here, which is before I jumped into starting the business I run today, I spent a lot of time kind of in an academic way looking at, well, what has been done in this space, who's set up for success, who's set up to innovate. And I think what I really found is there's a pretty big dislocation in that the people that are in the trenches and understand these problems and frankly have a lot of good ideas on how to solve some of these problems actually don't have the means or the skills to solve some of those problems. And then conversely, the folks that are super well capitalized, have the skills to build software products or whatnot to solve some of these challenges, don't have the boots on the ground knowledge to properly solve them. And so there's this real challenge in that those folks actually really need to come together to have really great outcomes. And there haven't really been organizations that have put those brains together under one roof, I think, in an effective way to solve some of these really deep, challenging problems.
Some of that cultural, the capitalized people with the software expertise tend to be sort of basically, live on the coasts, have money, educated Dems, typical, and the contractor community these are small town dudes. These are not groups of people that naturally mix and mingle. You know what I mean? You're going to have to set up something if you want them to talk to each other.
That is right. I mean, it is deeply blue collar and it is deeply white collar. And there's
yes.
mutually exclusive groups of people, right? And so I think in a lot of ways, just the ecosystem is not set up in order to appropriately solve the problems is one of the perspectives. And it is not to point the finger at either of those groups and say, oh, you're both bad. There's just, a structural challenge here to solving what is a highly complex problem across many dimensions. And in order to navigate through that, you really have to know what's going on, boots on the ground inside of these businesses, in addition to what technology is available to actually solve some of those challenges. Anyways, to take your segue, we have done that internally to help actually solve some of these deep problems.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the Zero Homes solution then. So you have, from a family of contractors, so you have some familiarity with that side of things just naturally, and then you spent some time academically looking at this process and getting some numbers and getting an overview, and then you're like, well, I'm going to jump in and do something. So what is it that you're doing? Where are you finding opportunities in this messy process for some standardization?
Yeah, so there's kind of a few different perspectives, but to maybe just say it very quickly, we are building the digital backbone and operating system to transform the way that this work is actually accomplished. And from a customer's perspective, it is simply to say, we're going to remove an on-site visit so that we don't have to burden you with one or maybe 20 in-home, visits, depending on how many projects and scopes you're looking at. Another way to say that is we really want to raise the customer experience bar, but not by sacrificing cost. And so can we actually remove all those visits, which fundamentally strips out a lot of cost?
All the visits except for the fix-it visit? Just the one?
That's right. When someone shows up at your house, they're actually solving the problem, not just talking about it. That's a critical first thing is we want to unburden the amount of time it takes to make good decisions. When it's a highly urgent challenge, you want good decision making as fast as possible. That's something that is really important for us. And then make that accessible everywhere, right? And so if you want to have really high levels of expertise available at a moment's notice anywhere, you really are forcing yourself into a software solution, right? And I recognized that several years ago. So, fundamentally what we do is we enable homeowners to digitize their home, provide that information to us so that we can engage them in a very high quality way around solving their problem and identifying what the home's needs are without having to go to the house.
This is the core of it. So what you're having homeowners do basically is take photos and videos of their own home, which you then can, with software, sort of stitch together into kind of a 3D model of the home. And then contractors can use that 3D model to do the sizing and assessment and all the things that would have had to be done on site previously. Is that accurate?
Close. We do not. The first half of that was correct. We're asking homeowners to do a little bit of work to help us understand what's going on in their house, but we do not then push that information to contractors to then design and quote sell these projects. We are doing that internally to remove the cost centers from contractors. And so our internal team of advisors looks at that information, leverages our software to appropriately design solutions.
Oh, you're doing the sizing and designing and et cetera. So by the time a contractor gets it, they're just getting a described and defined job.
That's right. I mean, our partnership with contractors, and again, this is a really important thing for us, is that we don't want to burden them with additional work. What we actually want to do is strip out all of the cost centers of their businesses and help them focus on revenue generating work, the part that they're uniquely capable of doing. And in a lot of ways, put a cape on who I would call the superheroes in this whole industry, the folks that are in the home delivering the projects and saying, great, let's help you make more money by just delivering projects every day. And let's remove all of the communication requirements, the design, the purchasing, follow-up, et cetera, so that the customer can have an exceptional experience as well. That partnership enables us to both raise the experience for homeowners and then raise the experience for contractors.
Right. Well, let's talk a little bit about the 3D model because I'm very curious about that. Like, what all does it capture? Like, if I'm a homeowner, am I literally just walking around my house taking pictures? What all gets captured? How complicated and difficult of a process is that for the homeowner?
So it takes 15 to 20 minutes. You're probably going to take 5 to 10 of those minutes, walk around your house. It's a video scan of your home. And depending on the type of device you have, you might see, a wire mesh show up on the inside of your house. And so you can really see the scan in real time. If you have a lower end device, it looks like you're basically just taking a video. And then we turn that into a 3D model. It's extremely accurate down to 1 or 2 inches. And that really enables us to not only understand what size and spec of a heat pump you might need, but also the practicalities of what needs to be done in order to do the work. And those are mutually exclusive problems, I would say, in a lot of ways. And the second one's the most important in that you can get pretty close in sizing to convince a homeowner that, hey, this is probably the right solution for you. And, this is roughly the right cost. But if you then push downstream to a contractor a mess of a project, then that's not going to go very well. And our perspective is simply to say, we have to set up contractors for success. And if we do that, then the homeowners win. In that if the first time they're showing up, they can execute on that project successfully, then that's an incredible experience for homeowners. It actually fundamentally reduces the cost and it helps those contractors make a lot more money. than if they're having to do multiple visits.
Well, I mean, from a contractor's perspective, if my choice is like the laborious finding customers, talking to them 12 times, sizing, designing, etc., and then doing the job versus just doing the job, pretty clear why contractors are going to prefer this. If I'm the homeowner, am I interacting with you? Like, who am I interacting with? Who am I sending these videos to? Is that you or the contractor?
We're the point of contact end to end. And so we are doing the design. Typically that's live. I know I sent you some images of some of our internal software, but we're screen sharing with homeowners and actually talking through what those solutions are in real time. So they get to be a part of that design process together. And that's a pretty unique experience. Very different than getting a quote that says heat pump, maybe a couple other line items and $20,000 next to it, right? And you're going, well, is that the right thing for me? I mean, we're almost co-creating this stuff together. And I think bringing homeowners along through the journey is really enabling them to feel very confident about what it is that they're getting, why that's the right solution.
That's so rare as a homeowner. I've often joked with people that like when I buy like an attachment for my phone or I don't know, like a, portable battery, I know more about those devices. Like I know those devices intimately. I can find intimate reviews of all those devices and test them and, but when I'm buying literally my house, literally the house itself, I had like 30 minutes, to walk through it.
Right.
And like when I'm buying a furnace, I don't know what do I know about furnaces? I can't go to, Wirecutter and find intimate reviews of different furnaces. Like I'm mostly just being a homeowner is feeling ignorant and helpless so often. So just the idea of someone saying to me, like, here's what it looks like, here's what I'm going to do, and here's why, like that alone is an improvement of the homeowner experience, I think, just to feel like you know what's going on and why it's happening. Hey there, everybody. Don't worry, I'm not going to tell you about a new mattress or push a credit card on you. This isn't an ad. There are no ads on Volts. It is supported entirely by listeners like you. If you'll indulge me for a second, I'd like to ask for your support. I started Volts because we're all surrounded by depressing news about climate change and misinformation about clean energy, and it's never been more important to share the stories of the real people on the ground doing the real work of transition and all the ingenuity and courage and public spirit they are bringing to it. People are hungry to hear these stories, to learn from and find inspiration in them. I've heard from people who change majors or careers after hearing episodes of Volts, people using it in classrooms and community groups, even state legislators who have passed bills inspired by specific episodes. Sharing these stories matters. It makes a difference. If you have found value in it and want to help me continue doing it, I hope you will join the community of paid subscribers at volts.wtf. It's about the cost of a cup of coffee a month. If you don't like subscriptions, you can make a one-time contribution, leave a review on Apple or Spotify, or just tell a friend about Volts. I am grateful for any and all support. If you're already a paid subscriber, thank you. And now, back to the show. Here's what I'm going to do, and here's why. Like that alone is an improvement of the homeowner experience, I think, just to feel like you know what's going on and why it's happening.
It also opens the door to ask a lot of the what if questions in real time, right? And people are inviting multiple contractors over to their house to get different opinions. And we open that door at the very beginning of the process to say, hey, great, like we could talk about this kind of solution, meaning a ducted dual fuel system or a multi-split system or an air to water system. We can talk through all these different technology options in addition to all the other optional things you can do in these projects, adding humidification or dehumidification or indoor air quality or backup heat or air filtration or insulation. Exactly. So that bucket can get pretty big quickly, and rightfully so. Homeowners have a lot of questions, right? And so we can show them a lot of different information across multiple dimensions. So, what are the cost impacts of these, both CapEx side and OpEx side of doing a project one way versus a different way? How does that impact rebates and financing and timelines?
Randomly, it seems like ducts are a big part of HVAC systems and not something that I would be able to straightforwardly take a video of. I mean, I guess I could crawl down my crawl space, but I don't know that just like average homeowner is going to know exactly how to find and video ducts. Is that a issue?
Yeah.
Is that a problem?
Yeah. I mean, no one wants to army crawl through their crawl space and deal
Right.
with the cobwebs and totally. So I will caveat what I said earlier, which is that there are some exclusions where we will send someone to the house to do a site assessment. And that depends on kind of the structure of the home.
That's not all ducted homes, because a lot of homes are ducted.
Totally. And often we don't need to see all of the ductwork, but there are some pretty obvious areas where we do need to send someone to the home. So we do another thing in our design process where we actually calibrate the house with utility bills. And that gives us a few interesting insights. One around the insulation levels in a home, and basically tells us, hey, you know what? If we're going to do insulation on this house, we need to send someone out. We might learn something about the electrical system and we need to go take a closer look. We also might need to go look at the ducts as well. And so, a small percentage of our homes, we are dispatching someone to go look at that, because to us, again, we're really trying to set up contractors for success at the back end of our process. And so if we leave them high and dry, not knowing some of the information, these details matter and they can really impact the outcomes of the project. So we're pretty careful about that, but it's a small percentage of homes that we have to actually do that with.
Now I'm going to make you tell us what manual J is.
Yeah. It's industry lingo that really is the process for defining what we would call the problem, or how much heating and cooling the house needs. It doesn't solve for, it will tell you about the humidity requirements or the lack of humidity in the home as well. But it is just one way to say this is sort of the North Star to then design a solution around, so that we know that we're going to give a homeowner an outcome or a system that's going to keep them comfortable in their house.
And you're confident, because I threw this out on Blue Sky, and a couple people who are knowledgeable about the space came back. One said that most manual J calculations are, and here I'm quoting, mostly awful, divorced from reality, and no better than simple rules of thumb. I take it you disagree.
No, I would actually agree with that. And look, this is an algorithm that produces numbers only to the quality of the inputs that it's given. And so if you give it a bunch of crap, you're going to get a bunch of crap back. And this is one of the challenges for contractors. And if you look at what's required to actually produce a heat load number, it's a bottoms-up calculation, which is just to say, you need to understand 100 different parameters of the home. And who has the time for that? This is just like a very practical reality. No one's going to go around with some do, but very few people are going to go around with a laser and measure all the dimensions, look at all the, materials and window types and so on and so forth. And in most tools, you actually have to draw out the house. It's just a ton of work. And so most people don't, I think, is the short of that.
So this is making the process of producing a manual J calculation easier, basically, and more reliable.
It's two things. One is removing the requirement that you got to go to the house to do it.
Right.
And so we spent a bunch of time with Department of Energy validating our scanning process.
Once again, you're segueing me. Really excellent guest work. So let's talk a little bit about this, because this is not just something that you're claiming. You went to the DOE and did some validation of it. So just tell us what that process was.
Yeah. Well, maybe let me take one step back, which is just to say that in order to deliver good outcomes, you have to have really good information about what the house is. You need to do analysis that's going to deliver good outcomes. And then you need to make some really good decisions on the back end of that with the homeowner's needs in mind. And all three of those are required. And so you have one of two options. You can go to the house and spend a bunch of time collecting information. Our thesis here is simply, we already have a person in the house. They don't have the expertise to do step 2 and 3, but they do have the expertise to walk around their house.
They all have phones.
That's right. So can we convince them to spend 20 minutes to send us that information? And then we internally have the expertise to do steps 2 and 3. And so I spent, a year with the Department of Energy going through a study with them to say, hey, we have a new process to do this. We don't need to go to the home. And what a wonderful opportunity that would create if we can show that we can do that accurately and, importantly, consistently. Anyways, we went through a big study with them, and the outcome of that was simply that they wrote us a nice letter that says, hey, not only can you be accurate enough, but in fact, you're more consistently accurate than the person that went to the house to do a similar assessment. First time that has been accomplished and was really critical for us. We haven't talked about kind of our business model, but we have some enterprise partners, and rightfully so. A lot of the academics in the space are skeptical that you can actually get the kind of accuracy and fidelity that we can without going to the house. And so it was important to us and the business to be able to have a third party validate that. And that's just another way to say we're getting really good inputs to the analysis that we're doing. And so if you can do that, and then you validate the algorithm as well and make sure you're doing the math right, then what comes out of that on the other end is a really high quality assessment of what the heating and cooling needs are of the house.
Did you have to get any sort of like official regulatory certification for this or anything? Or like, did this require DOE to actively do something to enable you?
Yeah, so there wasn't a process. We co-created it, actually. The Home Energy Score Office is probably the only organization in the country that has some level of scrutiny on what is done in homes for assessments and the quality of the information that's required in order to deliver some kind of insight. And so we worked with them. They have done hundreds of thousands of assessments of homes. And so we leveraged some of that information and our process to then go through and validate our approach and technology. And so that is not a fundamental requirement for operating in the industry, largely because no one has ever tried to operate this way.
Right, yeah.
Right? Everyone's going to the homes. There's no body of folks saying, oh, hey, we actually need to regulate, a totally digital process. I sort of force the issue to say, hey, we need to be able to stand behind a third party to say, hey, this actually does really work, because, there's a fair amount of skepticism, or was, frankly, a fair amount of skepticism at the beginning.
Let's talk a little bit about who you're targeting then as your sort of customer base. Sort of like the company kind of pitch deck is pretty explicit that in 2026, you're targeting people who are reasonably affluent, reasonably comfortable with technology, like just the 20-minute process. My experience has always been asking people to do anything. People won't do anything. So I'm just curious, like, who are the people who will do this? And like, who are you targeting first? Who are the initial customers?
Yes, we actually have two really different customer bases. We actually do a lot of low income work. I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then most of the homeowners that I would call market rate homeowners are folks that are planners. They're typically not in a high urgency, my furnace, et cetera, is broken and I need a replacement today. They're being a little bit more proactive about that. And they want to get good value, right? And so, yeah, they might be willing to pay up. They might be willing to pay $20,000 or $30,000 for a new system, but they really want to be confident that that's the right investment for their home. Mm-hmm. Those are really the two classes. And I didn't really know this going in, but the United States collectively spends about $2 billion through utility programs a year on energy efficiency work. A lot of that is funneled into the residential space, and a really substantial portion of that is actually funneled into helping improve the efficiency of low to moderate income homes. And we've been very fortunate to now run a couple of marquee programs in that space. And so it comes with substantial challenges, frankly, but it is work worth doing.
What kind of challenges?
Everything is more complex. I'll paint a little bit of a picture. We have a contract with the city of Chicago. We're working on the south side of Chicago, where there are very dangerous areas. Contractors refuse to go to some of these homes. As an example, we've had police cars in front of homes for protection while we're doing work. It is funny to laugh, but it's like very real, And we've worked with homeowners that are blind, deaf, immobile, don't speak English, or really struggle to communicate at all, have mental challenges just flat out. And so there's a lot of complexity in the people that we're working with, and we need to be successful despite all of that. And we need to do that without going to these homes so that we can prove that we can be successful.
Well, I'm just baffled. How do you get someone to do 20 minutes of videoing of the intimate parts of their home if you can't communicate with them, or if they're not speaking your language, or if they're blind? Like, how?
Right. So the technology doesn't solve all the problems, I think, is the short of that, right? They might have a friend come over to help us with some of that. They might have another person in the home that can help with some of that. So there's some process-related items that help us be successful, but there's still a decision maker there that we do need to get confident about this being the right thing for their house. In addition to that, because these are low to moderate income homes. They need a lot more work than, someone who has some more free cash flow and can maintain the property. And so it's a more challenging homeowner. It's a more challenging asset. And there's complications both with them not paying for this work, right? There's another financer for it. So I'll say just a lot of additional complexity around that, but it's really cool that we get to go do it. And there's a lot more of this work to do. And so we have this really unique opportunity in that the folks at the city or at many of these other utilities around the country don't have someone in their backyard that has the expertise to go do this work and do it quickly and do it affordably. And so we have this really unique ability to go help folks all across the country to do this work. And so I didn't realize that was going to be an opportunity for us at the beginning of building this business, but we now have multiple, 8-figure contracts with folks to go do this work. And I think it's just one of the coolest things we get to go do.
Well, a question about that. By hooking up with these programs, you are hooking into a funnel of customers, basically. Like you're hooking into big groups of customers, meaning that allows you to bypass the sort of customer acquisition step of things, which I always hear from everybody in the trades is the pain in the assiest part of the whole thing. So how dependent are your economics on having a bunch of customers sort of packaged for you on the front end?
Well, it's one way to say we haven't done consumer grade marketing to date here, and our economics work in that pathway as well. It is certainly, advantageous to us to not have to be acquiring customers one at a time, but rather acquiring a bucket of customers 100 at a time, as an example. And so we've had to do a lot of hard things as an early business, right? We built a novel software platform to solve a highly complex problem. We are doing the delivery of these projects through a third party, which is its own challenge, a very real challenge. And then we're working with large B2B institutions as well. And so to not have to also do marketing and some of the other things on top of that has been a bit of a blessing.
Yeah, I just wonder, does that also create some vulnerability? You're in some sense, you're exposed to politics because, these are policies that are grouping these customers, basically. Do you worry about that at all?
No, I think is the short answer. Yes, but it's actually a lot less volatile than consumer demand, as an example. Multiple billions of dollars are spent across the country through these energy efficiency programs that are largely controlled by the public utility commissions. And regardless of what's happening in Washington and generally irregardless of what's happening at the state legislature level, this has maintained its pressure on utilities for the last 50 years, basically. And so, yes, there's lots of regulation around this stuff that will keep it stable. And sometimes that's moving, but it has been a pretty consistent channel for us. And frankly, our value proposition to these programs is extremely strong. And so that really helps it as well. But, all to say, we are going to start doing things more outside of these programs. We haven't actively really done any marketing of this business, but organically, So it's been all through these programs thus far? Pretty much, yeah. And organically, folks are hearing about, hey, I had a good experience with Zero, and our referral base is actually remarkably strong.
So you are open to customers coming to you. You're just not out marketing.
That's right. We're just not trying to capture them, and that will change over time. But we've really focused on the most important things.
One of the kind of red flags around all this, at least, when I talk about it with people, is we have this long history with solar companies working with third-party contractors to do their work, and a lot of that work being done poorly. There's a lot of nightmare stories about poorly installed solar systems floating around. So how do you think about that whole side of things, maintaining the quality of your contractor base? Do you vet the contractors? Do you assess their work afterward? That whole thing, because obviously, if the customer experience is great right up until the job, and then the job sucks, you kind of blow it all. So how do you maintain that?
That's right. I mean, the perspective simply is that we want to help these guys build their businesses, and we want to be great partners with them. And there's some key differences in the solar space where there's kind of this dealer and EPC, division, in that an independent salesperson can just go sell solar projects and hand those contracts to a contractor And it's just paperwork saying, hey, this person wants solar and it's 8 panels and they're going to spend 20 grand and good luck. and that's not what that's not at all what we're doing from the perspective of we're going through incredible lengths to really spec out exactly what's going to happen on the property and then handing that to a contractor so they can go execute on that successfully, which is just to say that we're really doing our homework early in the process because I want to help those contractors build their businesses. I mean, we're doing work in incredibly remote areas where it takes 90 minutes to drive one way to a homeowner's house. They're going to spend another hour there and then drive an hour and a half back for work that they may not get. And instead, we're saying, hey, I'm going to go virtually meet with that homeowner. I'm going to schedule the work, and then you're going to show up and you're going to do it, and you're going to get paid really well to do that. In fact, we have shadow P&Ls for our contractors because we want to be really careful about how much money they're making, meaning that we have a threshold. They need to make at least 50% on their time, or they're not going to want to work with us. And the model only is going to be successful if these guys love it. And I didn't share maybe some of the reviews and whatnot of our contractors, but I will share one moment with you because it was really special. End of last year, we had a big party, invited a bunch of our partners in, and one of our contracting partners walked into the room, kind of caught eyes with me and just like ran over and gave me this massive bear hug and said, I'm so thankful that I get to be a part of this. Like, thank you so much for what you're doing for my business. And that is the magic moment. I mean, that's what we're trying to do is go help these guys build their businesses.
When I'm thinking about it, like, this just seems like all gravy for a consultant. So I guess the contractors, the business model is presumably you get a little cut of everything. Like the contractor pays you for doing this. The homeowner pays you a little bit for doing this. And presumably the amount of money the contractor is paying you is worth it to get basically to eliminate all those steps other than the jobs themselves. Is that kind of the business model?
Almost. Dollars actually only go one way. Contractors don't pay us, and they never will.
They don't.
Yep, that's right. We're like one of the only entities in the market that are not trying to pull dollars out of their pockets. Look, when I was a small contractor, owner, operator, everybody and their brother was trying to sell me something. And we have a very different perspective in that, like, we just want to go help these guys build their businesses. And so dollars only go one way. That does mean the homeowners pay us to get the work done, and we backstop everything. We take on the risk of these projects. We're accountable to change orders. We're accountable to the success of the project, and we're accountable for the warranty over the long haul of the work as well. And so that puts the pressure on us to make sure we get it done correctly and puts us in the trenches to make sure we really understand how to get it done well.
But that's how you make money is you're getting more from the homeowner than you're giving to the contractor, because otherwise you wouldn't make any money and there would be no reason to do this.
No, that's right. That is right. But it's important to note that this is not a cost plus experience for homeowners, right? I think we talked a little bit earlier about how if you want to have a better customer experience, generally you're going to pay more in this industry. We've decided that or figured out that doesn't have to be the dynamic, right? Very simply put, the largest contractors operate their businesses at about 50 to 55% gross margin. Their year end is somewhere in the 10 to 15%. And so that roughly 40% of the overall project cost is overhead throughout their business. And that margin is our opportunity, right? We're building software to eliminate the truck rolls and speccing out the systems and doing rebate paperwork, so on and so forth. And so our goal as a business simply is to say, let's take that 40% of cost and crush it so that we can make some money. The homeowner actually gets a lower project cost, and the contractor gets to make more money by being busy doing work every day.
So you're confident in saying that a homeowner going through your process rather than the typical process will get as low or lower prices?
Let me say it to you this way, which is some of our contractors have called us saying, how is it possible that you can deliver a quote for $20,000 and it costs me $23,000 to get this work done? Same homeowners have tried to go around us and gotten quotes from the contractors we send out to the house.
Oh, right.
And they call us going, this makes no sense. How do you guys make money? And the simple point is that we've innovated and been able to reduce a lot of the costs so that we can deliver more value. And I think that's really critical to this whole thing. If this was a cost plus experience, we wouldn't be able to grow this business, to do the things that we want to go accomplish.
So it's not costing homeowners more and it's not costing contractors more, basically. Like from both of their sides, they're getting a better experience for the same price, basically. And you're getting a little money.
Yeah, little nuance on the contractor side, which is that they make less absolute dollars per project. And that's because they're doing less, right? They're not selling the project, marketing, and doing all these other things. But relative to the time they're spending, they're making more money.
And honestly, I'm projecting a little bit here, but I'm guessing as a contractor, like losing that particular part of the work, it's like, I doubt anybody's lamenting, losing
a dream come true.
yeah, going out to, even if they're losing some money, just like losing that part of things, I would imagine is a blessing.
The name of the game for contractors is utilization, right? If they have technicians that they're spinning and not out on a job, that's just pure cost. And so the way that we partner with these guys is simply to say, we want to book your calendar so it's full all the time. And here's how much we can provide to you on a margin basis per job. And it's right in line with how they normally charge. It's roughly about 50%. That's amazing for them. They're getting the utilization they need to have a profitable business with a lot less of the overhead.
And are all your projects electrification based, or are you sort of agnostic on what happens to the customer's home?
If you're asking, do we put any sort of gas in a house? The answer is yes. We will do dual fuel systems. We did an emergency replacement furnace for a homeowner, and she needed it done immediately, so we didn't add a heat pump to that, but we're going to come back and get the heat pump put in later. The technology that we put in a house really depends on those local dynamics. And so we're not so stuck in our ways saying, hey, it has to be electrification or nothing. That's not practical. And it's not just about heat pumps. We do water heaters and electrical upgrades and weatherization work. And that kind of all gets wrapped into, I want my home to be comfortable, affordable, so on and so forth, right? And that's kind of our lane. Over time, we will expand that, and we have some really large ambitions there, but it's a lot to bite off to do 4 different trades in a home.
But your advice, because I think it's accurate, you think heat pumps are generally better solutions for homes, right? For comfort.
Absolutely.
Right? If you're advising a homeowner for a cold decision, generally you're going to go heat pump, right?
Totally. Our perspective is simply, this is a much better technology class. It's just really difficult for homeowners to purchase and get installed well. And so we're doing innovation to make all of that possible. But it doesn't mean that it's 100% heat pumps.
Final question, and I'm really curious about this. A lot of businesses I talk to are taking advantage of, what you're doing is basically like the innovation equivalent of a video meeting, why go somewhere? Then we have phones and videos now. Why go somewhere? So it's pretty simple, even though it's making a big effect. But consequently, the homeowner then has basically a 3D model of their home now out there on the internet somewhere in somebody's hands. So I immediately started thinking, as I often do, about the privacy aspects of this, the data protection aspects of this. How do you think about the sensitivity of this information and who gets to see it and who shares it? And how do you think about that whole side of things?
Totally. My simple personal perspective is that there are a lot of businesses that have done questionable things with people's data, and we're not going to be one of those organizations. We simply want to enable folks to have an easier process, and 95% of our software is not seen by homeowners today. It's all internal, but that will grow over time. We want to provide a dashboard so folks can make that really usable. And if they want to do other projects, it's like, great. They could share that with folks if they want. They can use that as a system of record for their house for all the products and services and maybe eventually financial products.
Right. So once they have the 3D model, it's useful on an ongoing basis.
Right. It's incredibly useful and valuable. And so, we haven't pushed that part of our product feature set out quite yet. We're getting there, but, we're building a model so that we can help make heat pumps a much easier project to get done. So we really think that that's incredibly important. But this is opening the door to a wealth of opportunities. And to your point, if you don't handle that appropriately, there's some very serious risk in that. But at the end of the day, we just want to enable homeowners to be successful. we're not going to go sell that data. I mean, just to say it explicitly, we are not going to go sell that data to people. That's not where our hearts are at. It's really around making the energy transition easier.
Do the contractors see the data? I mean, presumably do they have to have access to the model to do the work well?
They get a subset of that in pre-construction. So when we send them a scope to sign, they get the information that's required in order to make sure that they can be set up for success. But they don't have all of it for sure. And we really try to just limit visibility on the things that are required. But there is a fair amount of data that we collect. And yeah, I mean, to your point, we have to be very careful with that for sure.
So for now, mostly of your business model is these programs are bundling homeowners for you basically and handing them to you, and you are doing work to upgrade their stuff. So what is your, like as an individual homeowner, like if I wanted to go make use of your services, can I go do that now? Are you open for business for individuals, or is that coming later? And if so, how do people
No, totally.
find you?
There's no gate. If you want to download our app, you can scan your house and have a quote.
So you go to Zero Homes, download the app, and it'll walk you through how to do this video thing.
Yeah, that's right. And you can get a quote for a heat pump system same day or maybe next day. And our operational footprint is in Colorado, Minnesota, Illinois, Greater Boston area, and some of the Bay Area. And through the end of the year, it'll roughly be those geographies. We have a few more product goals to knock down, and then we're going to very rapidly expand. I mean, our ambition is to be nationwide and to make this experience accessible to everyone, not just the homeowners, but also the local contracting businesses. And yeah, if you'd like some help, we're happy to help in those geos today.
And is there any, I don't see any obvious reason why the same principle couldn't be extended to commercial properties? Are you sticking residential?
We are sticking residential for a couple of reasons. To your point, the technology is applicable, absolutely. The purchasing process is much more challenging. There's many stakeholders that manage commercial properties, and the design of these solutions are much more complex. And so we are sticking with a simpler asset type. And typically it's a single or maybe a couple decision makers in a house that are pretty aligned, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to having, sort of different incentives holistically. And importantly, there are a lot of homes. I think you started the podcast and saying there's 60 million homes that individual homeowners have to go through a process to upgrade their house. And so, really focused on helping those folks go through this process in the easiest possible way that saves them money and, helps the contracting partners that are in their area deliver these projects successfully.
I've wondered often, I've talked to many, many people who are doing lots of different things technologically to standardize processes and to do this. And I've always sort of this process, the retrofit process, is like a little bit of gristle in in this decarbonization meal. It just seems so difficult to make it easier. So it was really cool to stumble across this. People are working on trying to bring some tech to smooth this out somewhat. So it's really fascinating. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, hey, thanks, David. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Volts. It takes a village to make this podcast work. Shout out especially to my super producer, Kyle McDonald, who makes me and my guests sound smart every week. And it is all supported entirely by listeners like you. So if you value conversations like this, please consider joining our community of paid subscribers at volts.wtf, or leaving a nice review, or telling a friend about Volts, or all three. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time.